I'm Todd Crawford.
I'm Maureen Crowley.
We're here with
I'm just there. I'm
with
sorry.
Derrick.
I'm sorry.
We just found our friend, just Derrick, to come hang out with us today and talk about toxic productivity.
Real quick, Just Derrick could be like a cool artist name. Like I guess he'd be like a graffiti artist or something like at Just Derrick.
That would be fun.
I mean, I don't know how much people really buy stick figures for, so it's like, but sure, yeah, graffiti art. Like, do people still do stick figures? I don't know. I'm not that best of a artist, man. Let you
Yeah,
know.
I think people do.
It's retro.
Yeah.
You can bring it back.
Yeah, like bell bottoms.
Or snapback hats. Okay.
Yeah, or the snap bracelet.
If you make a stick figure wearing a snap bracelet and a snapback hat, that could be like the next Obey.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Are we fashion icons now? Like, are we really doing this?
I think
I
we
feel
just.
Adidas is looking for new people to run the show. I think we just proved that we're it.
I think we just started a movement.
It's a shoe in.
I'm going to be the next Kanye.
Yep.
Oh, that joke works on so many levels.
just Yeezys.
Deezies.
Mm-hmm. The Deezy's 12s. So what's up, guys?
All right, so I figured we could talk about some toxic productivity, and I think to start us off, how would you guys define toxic productivity, and what would you say is bad or good about it? Because I mean, hey, toxic things could be good. Could be good. Like Britney Spears did a song called "Toxic," and that was pretty good. So, what do you guys think?
Derrick, you want to start off? Oh, sorry. You did.
Sure, I was just trying to wrap my head around the whole Britney Spears comparison. I'm like, okay, yeah, but all right, sure. So toxic productivity for me, just trying toxic ways to obviously try to be creative and productive with certain things. Like I know for artists, obviously you see like rappers and artists now, drugs and alcohol. They say that you gotta smoke weed in the studio. You hear about a Young Thug or somebody saying, "Oh yeah, I need the weed in the studio in order for me to make a song and stuff like that." In order for me to creative and stuff. And I feel as though like toxic productivity is like something using something that is not necessarily good for you as a way to outlet your creative side. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know because like I feel like some people just use those kind of things as an excuse and lean on those things too much and like underestimate the whole like capability of doing things.
yeah. No, that's really that's really interesting. When I was thinking about like toxic productivity, I was kind of thinking about this like the constant pressure to be working on something and that having guilt over like taking breaks and you know this whole especially in the creative world where your success and legitimacy can be sort of measured in your output. It's like, oh, I put out this many albums this year, I wrote this many books, or I had this much published and stuff like that. And it's kind of like it becomes like to me like toxic when you're just so preoccupied with like crossing the finish line is more important to you than doing your best work. And you just want to crank things out, get things done, as opposed to really just remembering why you're doing the thing in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about it last night, and I'm not sure. I guess I don't like the term devil's advocate because there's implied what you're saying's wrong with that phrase, which is fine in certain contexts, but that's not the context I'm trying to use it in. But I started to question what is toxic productivity, and especially in art, and like things like you're working at Walmart or somewhere, and your boss is pushing you too hard. That's one thing, but in life pursuits, what is it? And I thought about look at any historical figure. And everybody, I'll preface by saying everybody has inherent value. I think that in today's society, we're trying to learn to value oneself as you matter even if you didn't accomplish this goal. You're still important even if you didn't win the award or get the job or you only worked 40 hours but you needed that rest. I understand that. But when you look at the people in history, like Benjamin Franklin or something, or DMX, do we look at them and think, well, he had such a nice smile and he was caring, or do we look at what they did? And maybe that shows how we as a society value people. But we look at the works. We don't look at the person themselves. And I do think that at what extent are we placating ourselves with the notion of toxic productivity, where maybe there's more of a balance than people care to admit, where yes, you do need rest, that's important, but I've noticed, especially with me, and I think it's because I'm a man and I typically talk to women. A lot of times I talk about like being so productive, they always want to pump the brakes. You're like, well, hold on, this could be toxically productive. And I'm not feeling that. I'm enjoying being so productive. And so on the flip side, I did want to address that yes, there is context where there is toxic productivity, but at what point of as a society are we just slackers?
I agree with that. Go ahead, Murray.
Oh, no, I was just saying, right, I think that's interesting. Because I kind of look at it more of being like this whole product of the sort of hustle culture, that whole phenomenon, like that whole like Gary Vee and that really famous guy Tony Robbins and stuff, where they're like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you can accomplish anything, and like this whole just pushing yourself at breakneck speed in like one direction, and it's like hustle what, grind what, this whole, you have to be constantly grinding and constantly hustling. And I think to some degree, yes, I think there is like a lot of like laziness culturally and just doing the bare minimum. But I think there's also this sort of extreme. I think we're coming down off of this extreme, especially with a lot of the books that are getting published recently now, and they're more like rest and taking breaks, and a lot more people are encouraged to take vacation time. I think we're kind of in, I would say, culture in that in between space where we are waking up to the need of, I guess, rest and taking time off.
Right. And I guess a good analogy, and I'm not familiar with the people you're talking about, but I listen to a lot of like those motivational speeches on YouTube for workouts and all that. Coach
Yeah.
Payne is always in rotation for me. And
Yeah.
there was I forget which athlete it was, but he talked about like going hard, and he went out with his team and they all went to party, so he partied and danced with them and drank all night. But then at 4 a.m. he woke them up and was like, okay, I was out with you, now you got to get out with me. And I wonder, like, how do you achieve greatness without going the extra mile? And with that said, the analogy, especially in the context of like athleticism, is that yes, you need to go hard, but on the flip side, muscles need to heal in order to grow.
Mhm.
And that takes time and rest.
Right. I guess too, when it comes to like great things, I think, yes, you have like the great things of like being, like the whole like story of Rudy Rudiker, who, won and who is a high school kid, C average student, joins Notre Dame and, gets carried off the field, wins the big game at the end, and like these sort of almost like rags to riches kind of thing. And I think that's what we mostly define success as, is just like overcoming odds and doing, which I don't think is a bad thing. And I think that's a very good thing. But I think to only say that's what success is with like, making so many albums, reaching like platinum or winning Oscars, or I think too, like a lot of people have very different visions of what success are. And I think that can also, I don't know, do you guys think, I guess, would that affect productivity? Like what your version of sort of grand vision of success is?
I blame, huh?
I don't mean to go off topic, but I was just kind of curious
No,
now.
no, you good. I kind of blame social media for that, because
Mhm.
nowadays people like feel as though if they don't have like a damn yacht, or if they're not making over 6 figures, or they don't have the house or mansion of their dreams, or the car of their dreams, or the spouse of their dreams at the age of 23, 24, they automatically feel like they're failing in life. And with social media, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, that's right in our face, because we see social media every day on our phones. Even when you wake up in the morning, most people get right on Facebook or Instagram. So if you seeing people that are your age or younger living their best lives and doing everything they said they were going to do in high school, and you're not even close to that, you feel as though like, well, damn, it's like I don't got time to rest. I don't have time to take breaks. And like I said, like for me, I believe pressure makes a diamond. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that if anything in life you want to get, I feel like you gotta be willing to put in the hard work to get it. But at the same time, I do agree that you need to find that balance because at the end of the day, I feel as though if you don't find a healthy balance mentally, then I feel as though if you don't get to that goal at a certain age or a certain point in your life, then you're going to mentally break down. And I say that because I've seen people in my life break down from that because they haven't got the person of their dreams in a relationship by the age of 30, or they haven't got their dream job by the age of 26. And it's like, it's a lot of stress. And I feel as though like social media has just pushed that even more to the forefront. And like we talk about like mental health nowadays or going to therapy and stuff, which is a great thing. But I just feel as though we don't talk enough about like the people that don't want to go to therapy and to talk about the people that don't reach their goals in life. Like, how are they coping with things? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's
I
how I
think
feel.
that is true about social media, and it reminds me of a quote I heard just recently about how you get awarded publicly, but you accomplish things in private. So we're only seeing the fruits of the labor. We're not seeing them get up every morning to water the tree or whatever.
Right, right.
But I think that yeah, the mental health thing is a big factor. I think more so even than physically. And I think that really it boils down to life being a marathon, which is about as cliche as it gets, but it's true. It gets to a point where, like, for my work, for instance, where it's like I can write another book or do this other thing, but if I do, that's going to put me out for a year or so. It's like if you work yourself too hard into breaking something. Well, now you need more time to rest because you didn't take that time when you should have. Now you have to double up. And I think that's where the balance can really be an issue. Is that if you can accomplish this thing in 5 years rather than 10, but that's going to cut 5 years off your life as well, is that worth it? And I think a bigger issue that our generation is facing with toxic productivity is that I think it often refers in hustle culture. I think it often refers to people who are not entrepreneurs, to people who are not artists, even to a certain extent. I think that a lot of our generation is working for corporations. So, do you really care if you make the Waltons another $100 today? No, of course not. So why work that double if it's going to kill you? And I think that what we're seeing now, this whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps and all that, which, like many classic things, I believe started satirically. That was never actually a true sentiment. It was actually said because pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, you can't do it, of course. And then it got kind of co-opted and used seriously, and then it got used mockingly. So it kind of like was like almost horseshoe theory, where it like came full circle to be a funny thing again. But what was I gonna say? But I feel like we're disconnected from that sentiment of like just do your best and things will pull through, because we've seen that that's not the case. We've seen the game is rigged. So it's like, why do this and kill yourself when you're not even the one profiting? You're doing this to make someone else money who wouldn't give a fuck if you died.
Right. I think I saw something floating around some time ago that said some kind of quote that said, "Take care of yourself. Your obituary would hit fast. Your job posting would hit faster than your obituary," or something like that. And I agree with a lot of that sentiment of like, working for a corporation, like why continue to kill yourself just to make someone else richer? I mean, that was kind of like, I'm going to get a little bit like personal, maybe like borderline TMI here, but like the last job I worked at, I worked in the finance realm, specifically in mortgage lending. So everything crazy going on with the market right now. And I kind of worked for a company that was like, I talked to like other employees there, and I think I was low key in a cult. Like I'm not kidding. I think I was, and it's not like the drink the Kool-Aid kind of cult, but like if you ever watch like Bubble Boy when they're like the bright and shinies, like the people on the bus, like maracas and shit, like that's what I feel like I was in, and it was just very like they're talking about winning the game and constantly being a part of something bigger than yourself. But, when you step back and look at these statements critically, it's like, I was in a department where I'm like, I don't get bonuses. Like, I'm in a place where I won't really get a raise or anything like that. I'm basically just being a part of something, quote unquote, bigger than myself and hustling and all this just to make the company more money. And I'm like, that I'm not benefiting from. And that kind of can be really discouraging. And I think with that, it kind of buys in that whole like hustle culture when you just keep getting stuck in the grind. I think someone I knew once told me that, once you get in the grind, it's really hard to get out of it. And I think that's 100% true. Like, if you don't ever take a second to just stop and just sort of reevaluate and see what in your life is working and what isn't, if you don't really pay attention to where the scales are, I think in some ways you can run the risk of wasting time on the wrong things or working on something that's no longer, or doing something that's no longer working. So you're just on this like fast track to discouragement. So if it's like, by 25, you're trying to buy a house, so you spend all this time, working like a dog trying to save up money to buy this house, and then you realize you're like, I just prefer renting, or the housing market's just not there, or the economy is just not here. Like that's immensely, I mean, yes, you have like extra money, but my point is like trying to reach like a specific milestone because you see everyone else in your life has, can be kind of discouraging, especially when you realize that, hey, maybe this is kind of overrated, maybe this isn't something I want. And just taking a second to decide that yourself is, I think something that people need to do more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, going back to something you said about once you get into hustling, it's hard to get out. It's like The Godfather Part 3 when Michael says, "Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in." No, another like more serious, like obvious analogy is like I always think about when you're driving and you drive to get on the highway, you're like 25, 35 through town. Then on the highway, you're 75, 80. Then you take an exit and you're going 35 again, but 35 now seems like you just like are going 2 miles an hour. You can't believe how slow it feels. And that's how it is sometimes when you take it easy after like hustling for so long.
Yeah, I get that, and that quote that you, Marine, used about how your obituary and your job listing, like I can relate to that too, because I know people say like for me to take vacations on. I remember like since we using TMI, I'm not gonna lie to you, like in my 20s, I rarely been on vacations, and that's something I kind of regret. Obviously, I'm still in my 20s now, but it's just like I know so many people that have went on vacations, went to the Bahamas, went to Jamaica, went to Miami, like just living their best life that I've been seeing on social media. Whereas though I mostly spent my 20s, especially after college, just like working or doing that double or trying to get overtime just to make more money or just focus on what I got to do to get to my dreams and stuff. And it's like, I feel like it's always been a bittersweet feeling for me because obviously I try to tell myself this is all going to pay out in the end. But at the same time, when I see like people I know just taking that break or taking off for that weekend or that week just to go to the Bahamas or take that trip to Miami, it's just like, damn, I feel like I'm missing out. It's like being that kid grounded in the house and watching his friends play outside. It's just like you can see them enjoying their best lives, and you feel like you just are missing out. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
hustle culture is, I think it's a need for it, but at the same time, it's just like if you're so used to it, or it's like you miss out on a lot of things because at the end of the day, if you got loved ones or people that care about you and stuff, you hustling 24/7 is not benefiting them. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, just because you're like, oh yeah, I'm hustling to get this money or get this new house and stuff like that. But right, but as humans, we also value quality time with people we care about. So I get it. We hustle for that dollar, but at the same time, it's just like I feel like it makes us also forget like what's really important to us around the way. If that makes sense. So
Right. No, I get what you're saying. Like you spend so much time, working, chasing the dollar, and then you realize you're like, oh, I'm doing this for you, but it's kind of like a weird, kind of reminds me of this weird conversation I had with a lady in a laundromat once. Like I have a lot of random conversations with people in laundromats. It's like probably about a good 60% of my personality. But I was talking to this lady who was like cleaning in there, and she was saying she just talking about how often she works because she cleans full time, and she's just like, you know, we spend all this time like upkeeping and maintaining this house, like maintaining a mansion or maintain, you know, um, all of that. You know, people say they go out and they buy the mansion, but they don't talk about how often they have to clean and how much of a pain in the ass it is to clean it. That we don't spend time enjoying it. You know, we work for these lives that we want. We work for like this benchmark in creativity, this milestone in life, and we don't really spend much time enjoying it. Like we're always going after like the next thing.
I would agree, but I don't think Bill Gates cleans his own mansion.
You
But
know what?
I do, but I mean that as well, though, is that, you know, what we're talking about, quite frankly, is an economic disparity where all of us came from, I'm assuming, working class families. You know, none of us were like the children of Bezos or something.
What do you mean?
So
I've got nuts.
so like we had at right after college, we had to grind, we had to hustle. We weren't given Monday to Friday 9 to 5. We worked the weekends, we worked the late night shifts or whatever to get by. We had to do all that. um and in the meantime, this is something I picked up on because I have family members of all ages, so it's like every time I go home, everybody's slightly and visibly different than the last time I was there. That's kind of a horrifying thing. And I feel like we've been robbed of life because we weren't given the same opportunities or the same luxuries that others are kind of born into.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't
When
mean
you
that
say
as in like, you know, a specific, like I think our generation, I think there's such a
Right.
disparity there. And I don't mean, obviously I'm not saying everybody should make the same amount of money or something silly like that. That's asinine. But what I am saying is that I think that even in college, there was such a divide between people who are working their way through college, who saw college as like just an investment, basically, and people who, you know, got the free rides and they worked for those academically a lot of the time. Or, you know, they didn't have to get those jobs during school and they could get the unpaid internship in New York City over the summer break that then gave them the connection to get their dream job immediately. These things are cumulative, they add up over your life. And then you're like, why am I grinding at 30? And it's like, oh, yeah, you got fucked. It's not that you
Yeah.
didn't work hard enough, it's that for you to get to point B from point A is such a steeper uphill climb than someone who is born into point F.
yeah,
Because that's what we're just clawing our way out of poverty, really.
yeah,
In one false move, you grab the wrong rock. Like, oh, I think I'll try this job out. Oh, you got fired. You're all the way down to the bottom again. And we live in fear of that. And, you know, toxic positivities because we feel the flames of economic disparity licking at our heels.
Hmm.
We're desperately
yeah,
trying to climb our way out of hell, and we know that it's one false move, and you're down in the ninth circle again.
yeah. That, you know, it's funny. On one of the when I'm always working out and stuff, one of the dudes I always listen to, his name is called FitX Fearless, and he always like talking about motivational speeches when I'm working out and stuff like that. And he was talking about money and stuff, and he's one of those people saying talking about grinding and all that stuff. And he said something about all getting money, and he said, I'll never forget this. He said, "Money can't buy happiness, but poverty can't buy anything."
Hmm.
You know, so it's like
Yeah.
I say that to say is because like I feel like what Todd just said about like we feel like that whole financial burden, like looking at our bootstraps, is true because a lot of us grind not solely because like we're addicted. I feel like it's out of fear that we don't want to know what's at the bottom of that pit.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I remember it was one point like when I graduated college and stuff, trying to find a good job and stuff. And I was working at a supermarket too, like on a fresh grocer, and it was a point where my bank account was in the negatives. Mind you, I didn't even know that was fucking possible until that happened. I'm gonna be honest with you. I never thought you could be negative broke as hell. That was a new experience for me. So it's like after that happened to me, and I actually got a good job that was paying well, that y'all can pay for this, pay for that, and stuff like that. I told myself, like, self, we are never going to be at a point where we're in the fucking negatives again. and that was kind of the birth of the Derrick to not not party on the weekends like as much as you want. All when a friend invites you on a trip, say no or make up an excuse because I was so afraid of being broke to that level again that I had to sacrifice having quality time with my friends. I had to sacrifice wanting to go on trips or buy this and buy that because I was so afraid of being in that pit. And it's like low key, I'm still kind of afraid. Sometimes when I'm buying something, I give it, I raise my eyebrows like, wait a minute, what's the price again for that? You know,
Right.
and it's like a lot of us are trained that way because, like I said, social media has like trained ourselves. It's like we see the effects of what poverty can do. It's not like back in the day before social media or the real mass media where it's like, yo, being poor is just being homeless on the street. Oh, being poor can also mean like being homeless where your family can suffer too, you know? And this is like nobody wants to feel that way.
And
Nobody
even
likes being poor.
even if you're not on the streets, you're living in a less safe area is something that's not
Yeah,
often discussed. Where it's like you can have a college degree and you can have a job, but you can live in the fucking projects. And
exactly.
that puts you at risk. Oh, you're getting home from your midnight shift. It's 5 in the morning. It's dark out. You're, a woman or a man who may not have access to a weapon to protect themselves with, or whatever. There's a million possibilities where that directly affects the quality of your life. And
Right. And I don't mean to get like super, super like almost like conspiratorial or like meta or anything, but I think with a lot of corporations, especially in corporate America, even in my experience, I think to some degree companies kind of know this, especially in like younger people who have this fear. They like just graduate college, they have something to prove, they just really need a secure job so they can pay off debt and stuff. Like I think they kind of know, and they just use it to like run the shit out of you.
well, here's
Out of
something. Here's
you're
like a
getting
put a gun in your mouth kind of fact. That's like it shows how fucked the world is. So you know how like Bill Gates and Richard Attenborough and all these types are like, we need to stop reproducing. There's too many people. You need to have less kids. The economy isn't right for it. That is what they keep saying: don't have kids, don't have kids, don't have kids. Right?
Right.
Google this: Bill Gates' children, Richard Attenborough children. They have kids. The world. So here's the thing: the ozone is just stable enough for the Gates children and grandchildren, but your kids, no, there's no room for them. We don't want them. And similarly, they don't want you starting families. They don't want you to own a house. They want you impoverished. Quite frankly, they want you to die. They literally see you the way that you see a cockroach. And they're saying this. They're saying don't reproduce. Life isn't worth it. The world's not good enough. That's suicidal. That's fatalism that they're selling you. Meanwhile, they're living their best lives, having as many fucking kids as they feel like not pulling out for. And it's do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. But you look at it and it's like, oh, this is eugenics. They're literally trying to kill off the lower classes so that they can eventually buy up more land. Which during COVID, what did Bill Gates do? He bought up tons of land. What do you know? It's so blatant.
he bought Yellowstone. That can be like the next like Mandela effect. Just Bill Gates bought
Well,
Yellowstone.
speaking of Yellowstone, look up Black Rock and all the things that they bought up during the COVID, with the housing crisis. They bought a ton of houses, and they're going to rent it out to us for a lot more than they're worth, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, you want to talk housing crisis? That was like literally my entire past 2 years.
In my
In the
greater
morning.
point here, and I'm sorry to go back, but my greater
No, you're
point is like what you're saying, Derek, like your struggles when you got out of college. I had something quite similar.
good.
Um, it's not that's not something to be ashamed of. It's kind of funny. Every superhero has an origin story, right? Like Peter Parker wasn't like King Chat. He wasn't slaying puss before he got bit by a spider. It's like I was a fucking badass. I lifted more than anyone at the gym. I was star quarterback. Then I got bit by a spider. I got even cooler. He started out as a nerd. So I really think it's more a matter of like it's a success story, but the story has to begin somewhere. But we're
Right.
we're we're groomed to be ashamed of these things when it's not even our fault.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think influencer culture kind of feeds into that shame of just like, oh, I'm going, with Derrick, that whole really great point you made about social media and just opening up your phone and you're like, you see someone going on this trip here or eating this kind of dish or, doing this kind of workout and just feeding into that, like, constant need. But I mean, that's my thought. I just really appreciated that thought because I think with like, as far as productivity and the whole toxic hustle culture, I think social media is sort of this insidious, like, culprit that doesn't get enough flack that it deserves.
Yeah, and it's kind of, and it's weird too because at the same time, like I agree with what Todd was saying too. Like every hero has a origin story. Obviously, we gotta start from the bottom sometime. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
But like
Drake.
exactly,
He didn't
just like
start from
Drake.
the bottom, but he said he
He
did.
was on.
Exactly.
I mean, he was on Degrassi, so is that the, is that the big point?
I worked at a
Think
He was
Goodwill
in
he
for
Angry Man
7
too.
years. I couldn't afford microwave dinners, but at least I wasn't on Degrassi.
Yeah, I just had to Google, was Drake on Degrassi? Yes, he was. He played Jimmy.
The stupid, boring thoughts you have when you're like stuck in traffic. I had that today, where instead of Neil deGrasse Tyson, it's Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he just knows a bunch of trivia facts about the show Degrassi. And that was the whole bit. I was just doing that to entertain myself while stuck in traffic today.
Yeah, but stuff like that, it's like I feel like we so used to social media and Instagram now that we forget that a lot of people have to start from somewhere. Even like somebody like a Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. Like obviously they weren't badasses neither. Mark Zuckerberg, he wasn't the most popular person either, or a social person. He didn't have a lot of friends, but a lot of people forget that, and it's something that I always remember. Somebody told me a long time ago. They told me that people aren't going to care about you until you make it to the finish line. I don't know. I feel like they brainwash people into thinking that
Hey, Derek.
skip the journey and get right to the huh.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Could you go back like maybe a minute? My connection just like went out for a second.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. And I feel like with social media now, I feel like it kind of brainwashes a lot of people to think that you can just skip the journey and just be right at the finish line. And like, who cares about the journey? This is where you're at. Here's the prize right here. Yeah, but if you don't go through the journey, how can you learn to appreciate the things that you have in your life?
Right.
Not to say that people who are born with money don't appreciate the things, or their parents didn't teach them how to be grateful for what they have. I'm but I'm just saying, like, when people don't understand what hard work is or understand what kind of struggle they have to go through the journey, when they get to it until their destination, they're not going to be able to appreciate their riches. You get what I'm saying? They're going to take things for granted. So
Right.
I feel as though I had to go through being in the negatives or to appreciate what I have right now. And I'm not saying I'm no fucking Mark Zuckerberg or anything, nowhere near. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
I am grateful for what I have right now and like the journey that I had to go through. And it's like sometimes I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I try to tell myself I'm not going to look at social media today. I'm not going to look at Facebook. I'm not going to do this because I don't want. I don't know. I know how where my mind takes me. I know how sometimes like I was seeing like your favorite celebrities drive a Bentley with a tiger in the back seat. You're smoking weed. It's like damn, what the fuck am I doing? So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to pay attention to my favorite celebrities. I'm going to focus on what can I do to get to where they at. You know? So
Right. No, I get what you're saying entirely, and I know Derek, especially a lot of your comments saying like right after you got out of college, you would just focus on finding a job and stuff. And I resonate with what you're saying so much because I think, and I'm sure Todd, you can relate too about having that similar experience of just trying to find the first job and really just being willing to take anything. And like I graduated from college with no job prospects, and it took me a little while. And I even graduated early, and I still had a hard time finding something. And just trying to just dig my way out of that where I'm like, okay, I got 6 months till student loans kick in and I start paying it off. And like this constant, like I saw like a lot of the people around me going on, trips to like, all across the country, going on road trips, buying themselves things and all this. And I was living in like a really terrible kind of apartment complex where people just talk like they were on West Side Story. Like I think I literally one day I was trying to, because I had to walk to work, and um, I remember this one conversation like, "You want to rumble?" I'm like, "What is this West Side Story?" I'm like, "Who talks like this?"
I remember that because you were in a
And
gang for a bit there.
yeah, I was with the guy in 2B.
You had to
Like
take a side.
it did. It was really hard. I just waited till it dispersed so I didn't have to deal with the awkwardness.
Well, one thing that I think about with those, like the origin story perspective, a lot is I started to look at things as I think we all want to see ourselves as the author of the story, right? Especially creative people. We want this sense of control. I think is really what it like. I'm OCD, so I always want to feel in control of situations, and I hate when I can't be. And so much of life in youth, especially, you're trying to be the authors, you're trying to control things, but more and more happens out of your control. You're born into a certain geographic location to certain parents, and you go to public school or even a private school or whatever. You're surrounded by certain people, and that affects you, and everything's shaping you in your life. And the world shapes you. You don't really shape the world oftentimes. You can, and you can affect those around you, hopefully in a positive way, but you're just as malleable as the others in your life. You're not the main character. And eventually you realize like, oh, I'm just a character in this story. And what I've begun to do is like when I'm in a situation, I try to look around it and be like, okay, so I see it as God because I'm objectively true and correct on that. But if you want to be atheistic or whatever, you say the author or fate or whatever metaphor for God you want to use, and say, okay, so God put me in the situation. What is a lesson that I'm supposed to learn here? What is the point of this scene in my life? Why is this person working with me? Because I think about all the people I worked with in retail or shitty jobs I had getting up to the point where I'm at now. And I'm so grateful to have met those people and the lessons I've learned through those experiences, even if they weren't enjoyable all the time, they were always worthwhile in the long run.
Right. Right. No, I get what you're saying, and I know going back to what I was saying earlier when I first got out of college, like I just took like a first job I had at like a smaller, finance mortgage company, and it's like, yeah, I worked really hard. I, sacrificed. Like I didn't buy myself things. I saved all my money, and I was not making very much. And it's like I worked like 10 to 12-hour days, sometimes longer. Towards the end of my time at that specific job, I was working almost 14 hours. And just trying to be wise with money and trying to be wise with like what moves I was making, in my career so I could continue to have security and take care of myself. And especially in the mortgage industry, it's such a very unstable industry. It's very disorganized, very chaotic. It's like in my time, I think I've seen like at least 13 rounds of layoffs in like 6 years. And it's like, you always feel like you're going to go out the door. There's always that security. It's like, I'm afraid to buy a house because I'm like, oh, am I going to lose my job tomorrow kind of thing. But I keep thinking with like that time was really hard. It was very high stress. It kind of negatively impacted me in a lot of ways. But I think looking back on it, it's like that version of myself worked really hard and gave up a lot, didn't really have much of a 20s, didn't go on vacation, didn't get married young, not having kids currently and stuff like that. Like, everybody, I know people who got married 4 years ago, bought houses, and I'm like, oh, I wish I was in that phase of life now or anything like that. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm very grateful to that younger self to be able to, quote unquote, like hustle and grind and kind of, in a weird way, fell into that so I could sort of live the life I have now where I can actually have this privilege of being able to decide what job do I want to take next or like where do I want to go or something like that. And I think, yes, the whole toxicness like really sucks, especially with like the origin, with context, the origin story. But again, I think a lot of it is just a step up in the evolution of like I guess who you are as a hero in some ways.
What do you guys feel about this? I hear this a lot on the internet. You should start seeing life as a video game. So it's like working out. You see it as like the grinding, where like in RuneScape, you're killing the sheep or whatever. You're grinding. Work. You're building up your stats. Your bank account's just another stat you got to build up, and all this other thing. And allegedly, it's helped a lot of people a lot of nerds and like incel types on the internet achieve things that they never thought they could. And do you think that's applicable, the video game analogy? Because I don't know if I do. It's interesting. I don't know if it's accurate, but I guess it's subjective.
I kind of do, and don't. I kind of do like. I like the analogy they were trying to help a lot incels or like kind of nerds and stuff. Like, you got to get that booster pack if so you got to go to the gym if you want to get that level up, dude. I'm like, okay, I get it. I like that because I kind of feels that. I also like I like it more so the fact that it teaches people that are, don't have real work ethic to actually know how to put in work for what they want. Because I kind of like the video game analogy. Because also, if you play like a video game, you're not going to start and be like the best player. You're going to have to fight these little minions or fight these henchmen in order to get to the boss. You see that all the time. We play Mario. So I like the analogy, but at the same time, it's kind of, I won't say distracting, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, a video game. We think about video game and stuff. As soon as you beat the game, that's it. I don't have to work for anything anymore once I reach that destination. But I feel like in life, it doesn't stop at when you beat the final boss. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I've
Yeah.
seen something similar. Sorry, Maureen.
No, you're good.
I was going to say, I've seen a similar analysis on movie endings, how it's trained us generationally to expect to like have a struggle, and then you beat that struggle in your life, and then you're happily ever after. You get the supermodel, you have the job you want, and there's no more struggles. But that's clearly
Right.
not how life actually works out.
Right.
See, I've never heard this analogy, but at the same time, I'm not a nerd. But realistically, I do really like this analogy. I think.
Oh
I
wait,
think
did you say you're not a nerd? I'm sorry. I'm gonna bring you back. What you say?
Well, to
I was
be
like,
fair,
wait, no, I'm like,
to back that up, I've always seen Marine more as the Bowser than the Mario.
what?
I've always kind of
I
seen
don't
as
know.
like the rest of us are jumping, avoiding those like weird like fire pole things that rotate, and then there's Marine throwing axes at us.
You give me Wario vibes.
Guys.
But what you were gonna say?
Oh no, that was it. I was just making a joke, but I'm not a nerd. But I do think, outside of throwing axes at you guys, that I think in some ways gamifying it does make things more engaging, and it kind of you can craft your own purpose around like living up your bank account, living up stuff like that. But I think, um, in some ways it can be kind of straying to naivete depending on who you are. But I think I don't hate it. I think it's a really good way of looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
it helps someone, it helps them, right? It doesn't have to
Yeah.
help everyone, but if it makes some
So I'm
people
still
lives
on this
better.
Bowser thing.
One thing I want to bring up that this is TMI for me, since everybody else has gotten one in. I have a very small penis. No, that's not what I
Okay.
was going to say. That was a joke. That's
Okay.
clearly not true. Could you imagine? But one time, actually, this is a true story. This is totally off topic, but I have to tell this, Derek. We went to the movies, and I went in the bathroom with Marine's fiance, and there was a stranger there, and I had to use the kids' urinal because there wasn't enough room. So
Yeah.
I looked at the guy next to me. And I said, "Do you ever think they have these urinals lower, not for children, but for people like me with really large penises that need it to be lower?"
Oh my God.
But that's a
Oh
true
my
story. But I gotta back it up. Oh yeah, I've been thinking like I made the mistake. I always check my bank account on payday, but I checked it the day before payday, before I got paid last time, and it was a bit lower than it should have been because I paid off a big credit card and then I bought my laptop. So of course I spent more with Christmas shopping and everything else. I expected it to be lower, and it really was pretty good. But when I saw it was in it, it worried me because it was less than the best I've ever had. And what makes me reflect a lot is that I think about now, like where I'm worried that I only have so much money saved, is that literally 1 year ago, if I had that much money in the bank account, it would have been the most I ever had in my bank account. And now it worries me as though I'm like impoverished. And I think about the rest of my life getting to that point and what that says about, I don't know, the economy, security, all these other things. But it has been something on my mind that I think semi relevant.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I, I think of the word security, financial security, even like in dating and stuff like that. Because I like you see like so many people talk about like having security in dating and stuff like that. Is like when you hear about women shouldn't care about money and stuff. Listen, man, I'm a realistic kind of person. You know, we all grew up in Disney movies and living happily ever after and love is love. But I also like to look at things from a realistic point of view. Money ain't everything, but it's a big something.
Mhm.
You,
I
you
don't
get
want to
what I'm
sound
saying?
like
So,
Right.
I don't want to sound like Andrew Tate or one of those type of guys, but like in the Disney movies, who did the princess always hook up with? It was always the prince. She never got with like, the shopkeep.
no, the Hunchback of Notre Dame didn't get no ass at the end of that movie. I'm just saying, like she thought he was nice, but you know, I'm just saying that it's only so much a lazy eye can get you. I'm just saying.
At the end of the movie, she's like, "I really like you. I want to be friends."
He gets friends.
Exactly. And he like, wait a minute. But I thought I was the good guy, and the credits start rolling, and he like, I'm supposed to hit. No, you still end up at the end of the line. I'm sorry. I'm very realistic in certain things, and like when we talk about financial security and stuff like that, a lot of us we're taught to be financially stable, because we're is not everything, but it is a big something. And the example I use when I told you my example about being in the negatives and stuff like that, it just kind of pushed me to like not ever want to be in that situation again. And it's like it's to the point where it's like I had to cut off or some people in my life because that I know were going to be distracting. And it's like I kind of regret it, you know? So it's like you should have that kind of fear of not wanting to be broke, obviously, but at the same time, it's just like you shouldn't let it dictate your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to use a video game
Right.
analogy, going back to that, I always
Or
think of it as Tony Hawk. When you're grinding, there's like the bar, and it can't go too far to the left, it can't go too far to the right. To get the perfect grind, you got to keep the meter in the middle, but it
Oh,
wants to
nice.
go to one side, and that's so much
Yeah,
of life is just grinding.
is this Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3?
For me, it was Tony Hawk's Underground, but I think it's the same mechanic in all the games.
yeah. I had Pro Skater 4, then I had Underground.
Listen, 3 is the best. That's all I'm going to say.
I gotta go back and play on 3.
Well, ironically, Tony Hawk's Underground is a game about pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and grinding and getting there
I
because you
might,
start out in the slums and then you're hanging out with Tony Hawk at the end.
yo,
Yeah.
don't tease me because I might get that tatted on me, man. Life is about grinding. It's quoted by Tony Hawk. Tony, oh man.
Did you have any
No,
more
I'm just
questions or anything lined up, Maureen?
yeah, actually, kind of pivoting a little from just talking about what toxic productivity is. I think one thing that we've kind of touched on a little bit here and there is, the whole concept of burnout. Like, do you guys ever struggle with burnout, and what does that look like for you?
Uh, yeah, I do. It looks like me like eating a whole bag of Cool Ranch Doritos and watching a Netflix show.
Ugh,
But
you're the cool.
I feel like it's normal though. I feel like we underestimate burnout because I feel like it happens to the best of us. If you're so used to grinding and hustling to make your dreams happen, sooner or later you're going to get tired. I mean, Usain Bolt the fastest man alive, but I know he take water breaks here and there. So it's like it happens. I feel as though you just got I feel like the easy way to cope with having burnouts when it comes to being tired of doing this and doing that, I feel as though like trying to do little things to like stress relieve. Like think about like a professional athlete like a LeBron James. I'm pretty sure LeBron James don't think basketball 24/7. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
He does little things on the side to whether it's go golfing, whether that's to the club, listen to music, whether to do this. I think it's important to have little things outside of the thing that you love the most, and or not to get burned out so fast. Because I feel as though yeah, nowadays we're taught by a lot of the motivational speakers and stuff. Eyes on the prize, but gotta be focused on your dreams, which is true. Don't get it wrong. But if you make that 100% of your whole life, if you don't hit the mark at the time that you want, you're just going to be more discouraged and burnout. And some people don't come back from burnout because when some people get burned out, they just give up on their dreams entirely. You know, so that's how I feel.
Well, going back to what you said initially with your definition of burnout, or I'm sorry, with toxic productivity, you talked about people doing drugs and stuff to
Yeah,
support their ambitions or whatever. And how much of celebrities being on drugs and all that is because they're under constant pressure. So that's the only
yeah.
way that they can be carefree, the only way they can relax. And another thing I'm going to bring up was, is it Cool Ranch Doritos because you're burned out, so you're doing the Cool Ranch to cool back down?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Sorry, I didn't
that's
want to
kind of my
explain your joke, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's basically flaming cool. You ever the flaming Cool Ranch Doritos yet?
that's is that a
No,
real thing?
That's a real thing. Look it up. Flaming Cool Ranch Doritos. I listen. Let me tell you something. That might be the closest thing to Thor's hammer that we have in real life because that motherfucker give me so much energy and power. It's just like I feel so powerful drinking it. It's like the first kid that actually drank Mountain Dew. It's like electricity just go to your fucking body. Like what is this?
I'm I'm
What
looking
is
at it now and I don't understand how it exists.
you don't? That's the magic of it. You don't have to just eat it.
I'm looking it up now. This is
Yeah,
Uh,
like I,
Flaming Cool Ranch Doritos.
wow. I'm gonna look for those tomorrow.
Go ahead and look for those.
Well, speaking of eating and all that, like that's the thing I've noticed with burnout is like, especially like on a quote unquote Friday night, because my weeks aren't always that, uh, Monday to Friday. But whatever my Friday is after a long stretch, I'll be so excited, like, oh, it's Friday night. I'm gonna watch a movie or I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna do this. And 9 times out of 10, I'll just go to bed early. I won't have the energy to do anything, and I'll think I'm depressed. And then I'll wake up the next morning refreshed. I'm good to go. I'm happy. I'm excited to do things. But that Friday night, so many times, I just don't have it in me. That happened literally last night, which was Friday. Um, I was gonna go out. I was gonna invite someone out to do something, and I wasn't feeling it throughout the workday. I thought I'm gonna see how I feel after, and I just went to bed at 7.
It happens, bro. No.
Yeah, no, I'm not just venting. I just mean like that's how burnout can be. But a lot of
yeah,
that is like junk food eating. Like a big thing that I've started doing this past year is I try to only eat once a day. But because of my medication changes that I've had, where like you have to eat when you take this pill, and if you don't, you're gonna
Mhm.
get sick. And or some days like this is really mostly only because of the medication, but there's some days where you're just starving and you just need to eat, even though it hasn't been 24 hours. And I think that's kind of similar to toxic productivity and burnout, where it's like, are you going to put yourself through physical pain and torture just to accomplish this thing, or are you going to let yourself be human and eat 2 tubs of Ben and Jerry's and some Doritos and order a pizza like a normal person would?
Yeah.
right. I just think with burnout, especially when I get burnt, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but especially when it comes to like creative stuff, I get like really ruthless and like overly critical of like everything I do. Like it'll be like if I'm writing something, I'm like, this is garbage, or if I'm doing like a drawing, or even like, and then it starts to like bleed into like every aspect of my life where I'm like, I'm not vacuuming correctly, or just like little stuff. You just begin to just like pick it yourself and like really, I don't know, just get very frustrated very easily with everything. For me, it's like I feel like burnout is like more. It's like very much more insidious. It's like you don't. Like, it's sort of like I can't tell you what love is like, but I can tell you what it looks like, kind of thing.
In terms of
Oh,
creatively burnout for me, it's usually I'll have days where I have like dozens of ideas in one day, where it's just too, like today was one of those days. But for me, the closest thing I had to burnout, I would say, was writing the last book that I put out through Amazon because I was so dedicated to the book. Like I was so obsessed with it that I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to do anything. Like every day that it wasn't completed felt like another risk that like, oh no, what if I choke on my Raisin Bran this morning and die and then I don't get to finish this book? There was so much pressure to finish it that I just stopped writing entirely in that way where like I put books out conventionally where I started to just experiment more with like uploading a live Google document because then I could just show my work and then I can live a normal functioning life without worrying about like working for months on this thing that then just nobody ever sees or isn't available, even though nobody sees it anyhow because nobody reads it. But it really hit me where like it was such an unhealthy experience that like I had to go on hiatus after, which I still consider myself on creative hiatus with. But like what I do now with like doing a live stream where I just write something like those videos where you watch a painter make a painting step by step. Um, to me, it's like I have such an urgency with what I do, and I love like live recordings of bands where it can be a little bit sloppy. So I consider typos like hearing like the guitar scratch as the guitarist is moving his fingers, not quite as cool. But so for me, burnout's almost part of the performance art for me now, where like
Mhm.
there are moments where I am just fucking done. But to me, that's kind of become a part of the art, which isn't typical, I think, for most writers. I think most people just write good books, but I'm not capable of that, so I have to do gimmicks instead.
No, as someone who's read almost every one of your books, I think you're. I like your work. I'm your number one fan, but I do like. Um, I mean, this is more of like I'm gonna glow you up for a second, Todd. But I did watch like one of your like live streams of when you were working on like that triptych of yours, and I think I commented to you about this before, but I do really like being able to see the process. And this sort of goes back to like a prior comment that like we made, like especially Derrick, what you said about like you so often see the end product that you don't really see the process, and
Right.
it's like, and I think that's very true. Like especially when specifically if we're just going to talk about books or writing or something, like you see the finished product Harry Potter, you see the finished product of like the Stephen King book or whoever all the kids are into reading these days, like you see like so much of the finished product that like you don't often see like draft one, draft two, the messy parts, the coffee stained notebook sheets or anything like that. And I think being able to see someone working in real time is pretty encouraging, I think. And I really like that kind of like transparency and things.
Yeah. I,
Thank you.
and and it's cool too. Like I when what Patah just said that he does a live stream and when he writes and stuff like that, I think that's a good idea. And that just came to me. Maybe I need to start doing that too because I told you both I do music too,
Hmm.
and it's like when I'm writing and stuff like when I'm trying to finish a song, like I kind of like I'm very critical of myself because if I listen to some of my favorite rappers and stuff like that, and they say like the most lyrical shit, or I see somebody else that's on Instagram rapping and stuff like that, I'm like, damn, that shit is hard as hell. I'll try to be better, and like I'm so critical of making this like sound like the most hip hop as like Nas Illmatic shit in the world that sometimes I feel like I'm critical of myself to the point of like, no man, I want to stop this instead of just going with it. I mean, sometimes if I get a beat or something like that, it would take me days or even weeks just to finish the song because like I want to make sure like this verse or this hook is so perfect when it's just like just do it. You get what I'm saying? Just anything that comes to my head, I just start like just writing it. If it sounds good, it sounds good. Like stop like bullshit and just like put your work out. And it's like I feel like a lot of us are whatever art it is, music, writing, whatever. I feel like some of us are just so focused on making things perfect or waiting for that perfect moment of opportunity that we forget that in order to get to our destination, it involves movement. We
Sometimes you
Right.
gotta
can't
be Nas, sometimes you gotta be Wheezy.
exactly. Sometimes you gotta be Lil Yachty. Like Minnesota is still a great fucking song, whether it's lyrical or not. I'm sorry, it is. But It's just like you got to just keep pushing forward. If it don't sound good, even if it's not the best like thing or the best work you feel like you can do, still put it out or still continue the process because you never know who's going to like it. You know, so
Right.
and I, so that's how I feel about it.
Right. And I think too, like we often compare our first drafts to someone else's like finished piece.
Uh huh.
You'll see the sheer amount of editing that goes into it. And it's like, and in my opinion, especially since I'm writing like my second book right now and I'm working on like getting through the first draft. And I think like, I'm like, a lot of this is garbage that I don't think I could ever be comfortably showing anybody else for a first draft. But it's like, I'd much rather have, like, for lack of a better word, a shitty first draft rather than the perfect draft in my head that's never been written down. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have 2 points to make, a serious one and a not serious one. I'll start with the second. With the live stream writing idea, it would be really funny if I did like filthy sex scenes and I was writing them live stream,
Oh,
just looking
God.
like a bum with like a hoodie on and a beanie. And it's like he put his huge backspace, 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 rub my chin for a minute, put my head in my hands like the thinker for a bit, throbbing. Continue. I think
You,
that
you
would be
pull up
really
like,
funny.
you pull up like the thesaurus and you're just testing out different versions of the same word.
And but on a serious note, with comparing oneself to others, and this goes back to social media and everything, I see this, I think it's with life, but especially with art, how I see it, and this is why I'm so critical and I don't really care, is that I see it as like when you're in a medium or a field with other people, you're all in the same gym and you're all kind of spotting each other. So like if I do a review on something, I'm spotting them so that they can improve. And that's because I care enough about the form and about their work that I'm going to review it. Just like a good spotter isn't going to let you have bad form because you're going to risk injury. And
Right.
similarly, I hope for that with other people, and I try to celebrate other people's success, which I'm not saying that none of us are doing, but it can be hard to do sometimes because you look at it's like how am I ever going to accomplish this? But I also see it as very motivational that other people have accomplished it, and I try to think, maybe I can't do what this person does, but I can do something that only I can do. And it's about finding that thing that only you have to offer the world and then doing it the best way that you can.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes I learned like a few years ago is somebody said it. Comparison is a dream killer,
Hmm.
and like it's like what Marine said. Like a lot of times we're comparing our rough drafts to like the finished work of our favorite artists, and I feel as though that kind of kills our dream all entirely because we think, oh damn, this is nowhere near as good as my favorite artist, so I might as well give up on our dream. But it's like I said before, a lot of us we don't see the journey, and I feel like nowadays a lot of celebrities. I'm not gonna say a lot, but a lot of times when we look at a celebrity's life, we don't think about the journey. We just think about the finished product. We just think about where they're at right now. We don't think about the times they were homeless. We don't think about the time their bank accounts were in the negative. We don't think about the times where they wanted to quit. So I feel as though when you compare yourself to somebody, it just like kills your mood. It just kills your drive for a lot of things. So it's just like I just feel you should just do you. And even if it's not your best work, it's just like how you know that. How do you know? You never know who's really paying attention until you actually put out your work. That's how I look at it. No matter what it is, because that those 100 people that say they don't like it, you never know if those other five said this might be the greatest thing I ever read. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah. And I think that jealousy should be treated like a cancer cell when you spot it in your mind.
yeah,
Because I don't think
yeah,
that that's talked about enough, is that jealousy really is like very unhealthy. It kind of rots your mind, and it makes you work against other people rather than with them.
yeah. I agree with that 100%,
Same.
1,000% actually. I've even caught myself being jealous of people like damn but I had to like it's like when you see your dog about to take off of the leash, but you gotta grab it. No, 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 you gotta grab the leash real fast. That's how I feel like jealousy is. Like you gotta get a hold of it. It is like because especially nowadays, it was and like when we young. or you see somebody else living a dream that you wish that you were accomplishing, it's kind of hard to like just be like, I'm so happy for you. Sometimes you be like, damn, I wish I was in that same spot. But you gotta tell yourself, it's just like how you know they didn't go through a journey just like you going through your journey. Some people time might come faster than others. You just never know. That that doesn't mean that your time will never come. I feel as though you should just, if anything, let that motivate you just to go harder. Or better yet, if somebody that you know is accomplishing what they want faster than you, then that just gives you an opportunity to learn from them because like, okay, they're at where I'm supposed to be at. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to ask them how they did it. You get what I'm saying? Instead of just us all just be struggling at the bottom of the boat.
Right. I always say that there's only two people who want power. People who want to lift others up and those who want to put others down in order to lift themselves up. And similar with any kind of opportunity or blessing in life, I think that, I think we're so quick to be like, oh, why does he deserve that? Why does she deserve that, but not me? It's usually the mentality it always is why them, not me. But then you get to know the person. You're like, there's always that like schlubby guy that's with the hot girl. It's like the Peter Griffin with like the cheerleader. Well, the cheerleader would be like for NFL. She's an adult. Otherwise, that would be disgusting. But you're like, what's she see in him? And then you meet him. It's like, oh, he's the nicest guy on earth. Duh. I was being shallow and judgmental. And similarly, I think that our minds immediately go to that negative space of wanting and resenting those who have what we have to want rather
Yeah.
than learning how they got it. And it just holds you back. Now, the one exception I will say, though, is gassing yourself up. And I think that plays into toxic productivity because, like, gassing yourself up, like, I did this, I don't do it anymore, but I used to do it before I'd write, where I'd have, like, too many energy drinks and I'd exercise. And I actually wrote a lot of one book while exercising, while, like, my heart was racing because I wanted more of an intensity and immediacy with it. And I think you could take all those negative emotions and deal with it. Like one time I was having a panic attack and I was pissed about it because it was just throwing my life off. I was angry. So I decided to like record the thoughts and I turned it into like an art piece where it's like, no, if you're going to take up this mental space in my head, you're going to pay rent. You're going to contribute. You're not just going to take up all this real estate in my life.
Nice. I like that. I like how you use it. So you turn something that's like that you felt that could hold you back and you turn it into art.
Exactly. And isn't that what artists do? Because, like, you hear about the suffering artist, you hear about all these, rags to riches stories, and it's always somebody taking a negative life circumstance and making an opportunity out of it. And I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of good artists can do is that they can find beauty in the ugliness and that they can convert. It's really like, I always use the alchemy example where you're converting something shitty into gold.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I like that. But can I say something though?
Is it gonna
I'm
get
not
us?
gonna
Is
lie
it
to you.
gonna lose any deals with Adidas that any of us might potentially have in the future?
Yeah.
I mean, no, no,
I
no
just want to
offense,
say who runs the media. No, Derek.
no. Let me talk. But unless I say something, answer something. But anyway, um, is it weird that I say you should have like a healthy balance of like gassing yourself up?
For sure.
Yeah. So it's like I feel like I get what you're saying about not gassing yourself up because obviously you want to humble yourself, but at the same time, I feel as though everybody kind of needs that a good, healthy level of cockiness to them. Like no matter if you are the best at what you do or not, like if I talk about music and stuff like that, I know damn well most of the shit I make ain't gonna be better than a Nas or Jay-Z or Kanye or whatever. But at the same time, if I'm in the process of writing something, you have to feel like you're the best in what you do. Like you see athletes do it, you see rappers or singers do it, you see artists do it. It's like you have to tell yourself I'm the best at what I do in order to get some things done because I feel as though if you compare yourself, like I said before, when you compare yourself, you're basically killing your dream. So if you're telling yourself like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, but even though I finish it, it's still not gonna be better than a Jay-Z, or it's still not gonna be this book I write, still not gonna be better than a J.K. Rowling. You know what I'm saying? You're just killing your self-esteem right there, and you're not. It hinders your ability to put out your best work when you tell yourself it's not going to be better than your favorite artist. So I feel as though you gotta be kind of cocky when you making your own stuff. You gotta tell yourself, yeah, this will be my best work yet, or I know I can do this. I know I'm the best at this. That's just me, and
Yeah,
that's something. And like it's weird for me because like I've always been a very introverted person. You know what I'm saying? I've always been the kind of person that I like being the fly on the wall, and to some extent I still do. I'm not very the life of the party kind of person. Hey, what's up? You know, even though I'm in music, so it's just like okay, it's weird because you literally got to be on fucking stage anyway. But I feel as though I've learned to have learn so much about myself when I start to believe in myself. And I know that sounds like something the end of a Disney movie. We all know we all love Aladdin, we love a Hercules, so shut up. But when you believe in yourself, it like you be surprised like how much like confidence you really gain from that. And it's like that's something I really had to learn, as cheesy as it sounds. Like when you develop a certain level of confidence in yourself, some of your best work happens. That's just me.
See, I was gonna say something on the other end of the spectrum that's not
Mhm.
as like motivating. I was just gonna say, I'm like, well, 50 Shades got made, so I'm like, I feel like I can do better than that. I'm kidding.
There it is.
Or this Rumi Kapoor book of poetry got published. I'm like, I feel like maybe I
Hold,
can.
hold on. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But side note, did y'all see the trailer for that movie Cocaine Bear?
yeah,
No,
It's a oh my god. So all right, so y'all seen the Han Solo movie, right? I hope y'all
yeah,
didn't.
I
Yeah,
didn't see
okay.
it.
Yeah, okay, good. But the
I went
the
to the
main
drive and fell
the main
asleep.
dude, well, you liked it?
I said I went to the drive-in and I fell asleep halfway through.
Oh yeah, okay, smart girl. So the dude that played the young Han Solo, he's in it. So basically, it's like a horror movie, but it feels like a comedy. Basically, about like a bear finding like like 50 pounds of cocaine, like bricks, and he snorts it, and he just goes on a killing rampage, and it's crazy.
Marine, that
Oh,
guy
I see.
that I've been sending you video of, Scott Seiss, I think is how you say it, Seiss. He does
Yeah,
the angry retail guy. He's in
yeah.
that movie.
He is
Yeah.
cocaine. It's called
Oh, I
Cocaine
see.
Bear.
Okay, Cocaine Bear, according to Wikipedia, after ingesting a duffel bag full of cocaine, an American black bear goes on a rampage and where a group of locals and tourists must join forces. Oh my gosh, it sounds incredible. Why have I not heard of this?
So I brought that up and say if somebody can go into a Hollywood room and get the green light for a fucking bear doing cocaine, I know you can write a good book. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a better example because, like, unlike Marina, I don't want to put down strong female independent writers who are. If there's any female listeners, which there aren't, I respect you, and I know that you're probably a genius writer. And every compliment you've gotten from a man is completely genuine about your writing, surely. But
And I'm going back to being Bowser now.
no, but I want to bring up Derek what you said. It reminded me of Lil Wayne. I am the greatest rapper alive. It's a sketch on his No Ceilings compilation where he talks
Yeah.
about that. Where he says like he doesn't think he's better than anybody, but when he's rapping, he thinks that he is the best rapper alive, and he thinks everybody should feel that way about what they do. But then at the end, he says it makes
Mhm.
it better for the people.
Yeah. You got it's cockiness, man. It's like it's that a good level of cockiness and confidence. Like when you step in a booth, you don't think about your competition. The only competition you have is that person in the mirror. And I know that's another cheesy line, but go with me.
I was just thinking that person in the mirror, like back in like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, when Willem Dafoe is looking at Willem Dafoe, like he's just competing with the Norman Osborn version of himself. Like I just think about like the whole look in the mirror thing. I'm like, that's always what I go back to.
That might be. Let me tell you something. That might be the best depiction of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde complex I've ever seen on portrayed in a movie. I'm just gonna say it. That might be one of the best villains I've seen of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
No, I
Am I
agree.
am I crazy?
No, I don't think you're
No.
crazy at all. I think in the what was it, Spider-Man No Way Home? like when they brought him back, I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. And they kind of had that. They kind of brought that back. But yeah, so you're saying we just need to Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde ourselves, and that's how we can be confident.
Exactly. We just have the green goblin serum. That's all you need. I think they
All
sell
right,
it. Yes.
all right.
Inside you, there are two Willem Dafoes. One is Norman Osborn. The other is the Green Goblin. But get this: what's everybody's favorite movie trope? When the hero and villain team up to defeat a bigger threat. So if you can get Norman to team up with Goblin, then you'll be unstoppable.
Nice.
Wow, that just got real deep. Until a glider goes into your back and said, "Don't tell Harry." So that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I get that. And so to pivot again, because I like doing that, we were talking a lot about like, burnout and all that kind of stuff and like continuing the hustle and grinding, doing whatever it takes to, accomplish a goal. So is there ever a time where you think it's appropriate to like take a step back, like take a break, whether it's like from a creative project or whether it's from like some other kind of pursuit? And if so, like, what do you do with your time?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate if you want to be a bitch.
Andrew Tate, people, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my gosh.
Rocky Balboa didn't defeat Apollo Creed by taking a nap.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that answers that then.
I mean, how can I argue that he did? Oh man, I mean, it's different ways. I mean, everybody has different hobbies. What they define as relaxation. So it's just like, for me, I'm not the. I like to go out, but I don't at the same time. I'm the kind of person that enjoys my own space and peace. So if I need to step away from a project or like a piece of work that I'm working on, I go listen to music. You know, like I always look at what's the latest project that comes out and stuff, whether that's R&B, rap, whatever. And I just sit in my own room and just listen to it and just let it play and just see if I like it. If anything, I like listening to other people's work and it inspires me to go harder about what I need to do. Because like, damn, this is tough. I need to I need to do good too, So
I'm
that's
glad you
my
said
piece.
that because I was going to bring up that it's funny creatively because usually the phases of rest for me involve studying rather than instead of creating art in the driver's seat, you're kind of in the passenger side and you're
Mhm.
passively enjoying
Mhm.
art, and then that motivates you. So it's not even quite. It's more light activity than it is complete rest for me.
Yeah.
Right. No, I get what you guys are saying because I think one thing, especially when it comes to, I'm going to talk specifically about creativity here, but I think something people don't always consider, really talk about, they don't really talk about like absorbing content as being part of the creative process. It's always like when you think about creative process, it's like, research, draft one, draft two, end product. But I think even before like the whole I guess you could rope it in with research, but I think even there's a step before that when it comes to like inspiration. But I think, yeah, that absorbing part of creativity is, I guess better way for me to say it is some common advice in the art world is for artists to look at like different types of art, like read graphic novels, like, listen to certain types of music or um, go to museums and things to sort of create like an image bank for themselves to draw upon. It's like sort of you spend time like reading, watching movies, and what have you, listening to music as a way to fill, I guess, your quote unquote like creative well for you to draw on from in the future. And I think sometimes another part of burnout is like when that well is empty, or when you look at like those, that specific art style you're drawing, or that specific beat you have, or the type of like poem you're writing, and you're no longer feeling that like spark for it. You almost feel like a sense of dread around it. I think that can also be a good indicator of like taking rest and just even if it's going back to what inspired you initially, even just finding something else entirely, I think there is a time and place for taking a break. And, however long that tends to be, really just depends on you. I mean, in my experience, I just spend time, like I have multiple hobbies in very many different areas, like visual art, reading, writing, and movies and things like that. So it's like, I let one activity run its course and then I go back to the project, or take up another activity until you feel like you're ready enough to, I guess, get back on the horse. And I think, with taking sort of like, it's kind of like when you work out, you take like active rest, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking is might be the key to all this is that, okay, so it's rest day for your legs, but your arms can still lift. And it's
Right.
about handling that balance in life of being productive in one aspect and then setting that aside, but being productive in another. So it's not, I mean, it's okay to be sedentary. It's okay to, have rest days and all that. But to put everything into one aspect of your life, like if you put everything into your job, you're going to be a shitty dad. But if you put everything into being a dad, you're going to be a shitty employee.
So
Yeah.
you're saying more people should do leg day, Todd? Is that what you're saying?
Preferably, yes.
It just sounds like more people should abandon their kids. I got it. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, you got to think about your boss. He's a person too.
Exactly.
He
He
needs
has kids to
someone Thursday night at the office. What are you
feed.
doing?
He can't talk to the janitor all the time. Somebody got be.
Somebody has got to work this gas station on Christmas, and it's not going to be your boss because he has a family, unlike you.
oh my gosh.
Oh.
Does your fucking daughter, does she pay the bills? Does she send you a check every 2 weeks to help pay for all your toys in your house? No.
I mean, somebody got to work that Christmas shit. Shit. Damn sure ain't gonna be Santa. So why not you, Todd?
That's what I say every year when my boss asks me.
No, that's weird. Fun fact. So, is it safe to say that Santa is the most lazy employee ever? Like, does Santa gonna does Santa collect unemployment because he only work once a year, don't he?
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't want to answer this question because I'll end up on the naughty list by talking shit on him. It's not a good joke. Please don't laugh at that. That's all I got.
Yeah, well, I want to say, like, but he pulls the numbers. Like, yes, the store's only open one day, but the
Yeah.
sales made in that one day are through the roof. Like, his productivity report is outrageous. So he probably works
Yeah.
harder in one day than we do in a year. And I just feel like it's kind of insensitive to discredit that work.
Yeah, I guess. I,
Because
I still
he's going around
feel
the whole
Santa's.
world.
I mean, I googled it and I came up with two things.
But
First
but
thing
but
is what?
go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying. First thing, the majority of Santas only work during November and December, though some keep the holiday spirit going all year long. And the second, the second point is that I guess he spends the year making toys with the help of his house. So I'm like,
Oh, that's
with
true.
the amount of output, like he receives letters from children asking for Christmas gifts.
What do you think it's
And
like
here's a
working for Santa? Like, do you think
I
he's like
don't know.
a shitty boss?
Well, and here's some old toxic productivity here. It says, does Santa sleep all year? Every year, Santa and his team of elves stay awake for days and nights so he can deliver presents. So I think that's not healthy.
So basically, Santa is Jeff Bezos.
That's how it sounds.
Imagine being a fucking elf. You live in the North Pole, and your boss comes up to you and is like, I'm going to need you to work that double tonight. And you're like, oh, man, I didn't even get a lunch.
Is there a problem, Chris? He said, "Damn right, it's a problem, Santa. We're going on a strike, an elf strike and shit."
Like, how much do you get paid?
I don't know. Like, and plus, like, is there any clubs or anything to enjoy in the North Pole? So it's like, what do they do for their entertainment time? It's like,
Do they unionize?
hey, the union, an elf union. I don't know.
gosh.
Really, Santa Claus is the Willy Wonka of Christmas.
Ooh,
He's got his secret factory. He's got his Oompa
yeah,
Loompas. The kids love him.
yeah, yeah. That might
Yeah.
that might be true. But what I don't know. So if you was to get a golden ticket to Santa's workshop, right? Like, how would it be? Like you're just seeing motherfuckers working. Like going to Santa's workshop won't be no different than going to an Amazon Prime, Amazon
Yeah.
warehouse, like
See, I'm just
to see a bunch of
imagining
boxes.
Santa like abusing people emotionally to get them to work harder. Where the elf's like taking off. He's like, I gotta take off early tonight. The wife made dinner, and Santa's like, oh, that's okay. Little Susie doesn't need her little. I always imagine like the wooden toys for Christmas, like in the old like Rankin
Yeah,
Bass movie.
Oh, of
Little
course.
Susie doesn't need her little train toy. She'll just go without for Christmas this year. And
It's like just gaslighting people.
yeah, no, he just pressures them into it. He's just emotionally manipulative.
he said, "I guess Chris will miss his third Christmas while his PS5."
The elves are really slacking into the electronics department.
So,
Oh gosh.
oh man, it's I feel bad for the elves that got working on electronic part because everybody wants a fucking tablet or a PS5 nowadays. So it's like, fuck, I never get called up.
It's gonna be PS5 years old by the time I get my hands on one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I used to be a big gamer when I was younger, but it's like when games started going up and shit, like I can care less.
Yeah, well, how much do we replace actual productivity in life with synthetic dopamine feeds like video games? Because really, video games are a form of work, especially now that we work on the computers and from home. I do
Mm.
wonder if, like, so many people are placated in life because they have that um, reward drip feed it's been studied and there's all these analyses on it. I think it's even taken to court that it's a form of gambling for children, some video games with loot boxes or whatever. How much as a society, especially with young men, are we having synthetic accomplishments rather than true accomplishments? And how far back is that going to hold society where it's like the next Jeff Bezos or the next Mark Zuckerberg won't even happen because they're too busy like ranking up in World of Warcraft?
Yeah.
So
No, that's interesting.
yeah, so basically you're saying like a lot on video games kind of give us a false like a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Have you ever like pulled like an all nighter playing a new game and you beat it after like 5 hours sitting there and you're like, oh man, I put it in tonight. I'm winded. But you also
So
have a sense
yeah,
of gratification, like you just worked like an overtime shift.
yeah, and that's what I was going back when we were talking about using video game analogy as motivation because at the end of the day, oh yeah, you beat that final boss, but guess what? You still got work in 2 hours. It don't stop there.
I like the idea
So
of
it's
the
just like,
boss is your final boss. And you
it's like,
defeat
oh,
him somehow.
right. Somebody just gonna come take his place in real life. A final boss never really dies. Jeff dies, Chris gonna come in to take his place. So so I don't know what to tell you.
What happened to the regional manager? Someone touched an axe and he fell into a pit of lava.
I mean, just think, even when Steve Carell left the office, who came to take his place? And it didn't end when left.
It probably should have, from what I hear.
It kind of did. So maybe that wasn't the best analogy, but you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying.
Well, do we have any more thoughts on toxic productivity?
Well, that's everything I got, guys.
Man, that's all I got too.
All right, then I guess we'll wrap the episode up there. Thank you for listening. Uh, do you have anything you want to plug, Derek, before people go?
Um, Follow me on social media. My Instagram is hold up, I gotta bring it up. Jeez, don't even know my own shit by heart. Okay, young underscore Urk7, YUNG_URK7. I got music on Apple, Spotify, and come check me out.
And we'll post links in the description.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for hanging, guys.
Thank you.
Mhm.